And back in 2007, I sent out also the note that incidentally, China has passed us in the number of graduate students in science, in technology, education, mathematics, which I'll refer to as STEM. I don't like it, but it moves all of them together. They did that back by 2007. They turned out more people in that area. Okay, so that's the red line going up here. The blue line is our total. But if you'll take a look, the number of our actual students trained, educated in the United States is down here. And this gap here is the foreign students that come to study in the United States. Because we have, up until recently, pretty good teaching in many of the advanced sciences. But keeping them, that's going to be the big problem. Now, it gets up to 2020, and we know where these numbers are, and this is where it's projected to go. So we'll get up to 39,000. China will produce 77,000. And a lot of the students they send over here to us, and same thing for India and others, once they graduate, they have to go back unless they stay for something called OPT. We'll get to that. Anyway, we depend upon them for many things. This was way back, almost when I first came to Emporia State, began teaching. Some people say, those foreign students are pushing our kids out of the sciences. This is not correct at all. This is the number of students that were going into engineers. This is the American students, and the number was going way down. Here are the foreign students we have coming in, and actually China is not a competitor in here because this was the Cultural Revolution. They closed their schools down, and they didn't begin sending until Mao Zedong died in 76, and Deng Xiaoping took over control and expanded universities, brought education back and so forth here, and then it goes up. In fact, without, and in the reading material that you have, this is written up as an article to be published, but it's hard to get it to be that way. But actually, at the graduate level, international students do not crowd out, but actually increase domestic enrollment. Without these international students, primarily from Asia, many U.S. research universities would have to shut down their graduate science departments and research programs. And in here, basically, we have university programs that depend upon them. If they're not here, those close down. We don't have faculty then hired for those departments, and we drop fast. So it's important to be able to discard this argument. And the data that's all through these reports goes towards that. Why? This has been fairly consistent throughout the last 30 years. If we look at when you come to college, what do you major in? And in the United States, it's somewhere around 17% major in science and engineering and so forth. Singapore is the most advanced nation as far as the number of master's degrees, doctorate degrees, and so forth. Little island nation. It's an amazing little place. They are way ahead in cell phones of anyone else in the world. And they have almost no kids because most people have master's degrees or better. And that takes care of that. And so they actually go and recruit. So they go up to China, Xi'an, and Shanghai. They go over to Tokyo. They go up to Seoul. And they say, if you would like to go to they have 3 major universities, we're excellent, top rated. And you can go there for totally free if you're a top-notch student and can pass the exams as you go into college and so forth. But for every year you go to college free, then you have to stay an extra year in Singapore. So you go there 4 years, or master's for 6, or a PhD for 8, and you stay that much more. Or you probably meet your spouse and have a family, and then you stay. Except you don't have the family. Anyway, for the most part, because you're educated. Anyway, so Singapore has been and will always continue to be there ahead of us on everything. Cell phones. They got rid of money way back a long time, and went to electronics way before any other country did. Okay, China's second. About half the students that go to the universities in China are studying the science and engineering. Okay, good in there. Okay, South Korea, notice, and Taiwan and Finland, Germany, Sweden, and some others on down. We're down here at the bottom of this list. You go to other countries, of course, there's even less as far as that goes. This is percentage when you look at the size of the number of universities and their expansion, which has been terrific, dramatic. That when Mao Zedong died, I have graphs for that. But anyway, it's very small. And then Deng Xiaoping, he just expanded the universities dramatically. But in doing so, he said to get the salaries up so that the professors are not making them less than the cab drivers, we're going to charge tuition, full tuition, for the cost of running that university. So they pay more for tuition over there relative to their average income than we do over here. And so it is somewhat of a capitalistic type system. The government does build it, and then it runs itself off of fairly high tuition. Keep in mind, in all the Asian countries, not just in China, you make $1, you save 60 cents. Versus the United States, where you make $1 and you spend $1.05. Okay, and that makes for a big difference. When they went through COVID, there was not $1 sent out like the $1,200 checks that we got here, which were necessary to save us because we don't save 60 cents out of $1. Okay, so it's a different way of looking at things, and education is extremely highly valued in China, as you can see from the graphs here, and all of the Confucian based nations. That includes Korea and Taiwan, and actually includes Vietnam too. So, but they're building up fast. Okay, number of foreign students graduating from American colleges and obtaining the OPT. This is after you graduate, your student visa is up. You got your degree. Can you stay on for additional professional training? And we had a limit on that. We're not going to let many of those people stay. This is the first time we took away the limit, made it higher. And now here's 2016, and the second time we did it. We didn't do that. We would be out of talent in many, many fields. And that's not necessarily understood. In fact, there are legislators in Kansas who would very much like the border regions to ban all foreign students, especially those from China. Because they're the enemy and they're stealing everything. Yeah. Anyway, what they don't know is that we would lose departments left and right. And the same is true all across the country, in many fields. Where are they coming from? Okay, OPT, they're the ones that get to stay on for some additional couple of years for additional professional training. And public universities, private, you can see it's the big universities are where it's at. How many are coming from masters, how many are coming from doctorate? And it depends on what you need. If you're going into computer programming, you might only need 2 years of college. But if you're going into the real deep production of the physics of production of chips and so forth, getting down to the very, very super small ones and so on, then that will take a PhD degree and a lot more depth. Where do they come from? North America, itty bitty, Middle East, a few more, not much. Africa, Latin America, the Caribbean, Europe, here. Asia. Asia includes India and China, also Korea and so on. Here's your data on that. And India, especially for programming, computer programming. China, Japan, Taiwan, South Korea, major sources of students. 300,000 students in the United States at 2 years ago. It's dropping. India going up and increasing. So it's these numbers are as of August 2017 is about the best I could find from this. So you can see where they're coming from, and there's a difference in respect for education. In China, the neat thing is if you are an intellectual, that you're called a 知识分子 is Mandarin for intellectual, and if you're a college student, you are an intellectual. Oh, that is a great honor. if you're an intellectual in American schools, you're a nerd, egghead, although that type of thing, you run. There's a few exceptions, and that is if you're in some of the special schools. So you go to Johnson County, you go to the Valley, and parents go and move there so their kids will get a good education, and those teachers there are paid more than college professors are here. Okay. And they do. Yeah, they turn out good students because they've got, but that's a very small number compared to all the rest of the state that has over half the physics teachers in these little rural schools and middle-sized schools don't have any credentials in physics. Anyway, we are in a desperate place, but I'm not going that direction. That's another lecture there. Okay. Hello, communicate with each other here. Okay. I'm not sure why it's not advancing. Sorry. 1 minute. Oh, there it is. Okay. There we go. This one I really should jump on by coming this way on the graph. It's your fear of failure. Going up this way, this is the OECD, Office of Economic Cooperation and Development. This is out of Europe, but it looks at all the developed countries in the world. And it gives the test, a PISA test that compares everyone and students at various ages, age 15 in particular. But anyway, fear of failure, real high in the Asian countries over here, except mainland China, but going up score-wise, the average reading scores in English are also up that direction. We're here, it's not a bad place. Down here is in pretty bad shape. Okay. Okay, the Belfer Center report, extremely important report. And these are from various, like Stanford, Georgetown, and so forth. Belfer Center is actually out of Harvard. And this one shows the number of patents dealing with quantum. This is an area of electronic and AI. And you can see the numbers going up as you go down. Yeah, from 2010 to 2018, our number of patents, China's number of patents, and the rest of the world. Anyway, 5G. Anyway, this is us on this graph. And these are 5 different factors, how many users and stations that are broadcasting and that type of thing. When I came back from China in 2018, I had to fly into Beijing, stay overnight, and then go out in the morning. And so I tune in and listen to what's going on. And it's real neat because not only does everyone have a 5G phone, but Beijing's park has it all set up. So it's like Pokemon. You can go out and see all sorts of fictional things using your phone under 5G. It sets up the whole operation. We didn't get to that point until January of last year, when we started getting airports and worrying about that. We're 5-6 years behind in 5G. They didn't steal from us. We're going to have to use their patents. Okay. The top semiconductor producer, you see at the very beginning, we were up there with Europe, which is where a lot of inventions were. And then, as you see coming on, Taiwan, South Korea. Now, this is where we are at here. This is where they're anticipating 2030. And this is an association that deals with semiconductors and chips. And it depends on the nature of them. If you're using the older chips that are fairly large and not microscopic and so forth, these are called legacy chips. And China does produce those. And these are the things that are commonly used in equipment around. But if you're looking at the ones that are super nanometer, we don't produce those. Holland is way ahead on that, but Taiwan and South Korea, Samsung, and then the Taiwan company has 4 letters in its name. Anyway, they are and will continue to be the major producers of those very high-tech chips. Now, 2 weeks ago, the president flew out to Arizona where they were going to put 1 plant. They're not going to put 2, the Taiwan plant, and they're going to have to bring all the parts over from Taiwan And then they're gonna have to hire just about everyone except secretaries from Taiwan. Because we don't have the students that have the knowledge. And 30% of them requires PhD and the others require masters. And our production isn't there. We don't have, they're gonna have to bring it over. That's gonna cost because it's more expensive. Bring over foreign families and with the talents to run those plants. And to also ship them over from, instead of buying them from them directly. And Samsung is expanding too. So up in 2030, they're still going to be real big. Is China going to expand? Yes. But Taiwan and South Korea will be 40%, maybe up to 24. This says we'll drop from 12 to 10. We may go back up to 12. Put in for research and design 2000, 2010, 2020. China now us to research and design. In fact, it's likely that if they do cut the spending in the bill coming out, not that they'll pass, but it's in order to get employment negotiated and so on, we will probably go down in R&D spending. Okay. This is ISI is a very interesting clairvoyant audit. It's an Institute for Scientific Information, and these are the people that did CSI, the counting of the number of citation index, and then the impact factor. And this is what a lot of universities are using now to evaluate a professor. How many articles did you print in a journal? And is that journal a high ranking or a low ranking journal? And so on. And that's what we're going to measure, whether you get a promotion or not, or whether you get a job somewhere else and so on. And they also do a lot of other measurements as well. I have lectured many times in China against the use of the science citation index and the impact factor. And there's a whole bunch of people, agencies that are signed on against it as well, because it depends on the field you're in as to whether you're going to be cited or not. And the journal that I am English editor of, and this is all in English, except for the abstracts. Anyway, you describe a new species of insect, you may be the only person in the world working on that group. The next person that comes along may not be born yet, so you're not going to get cited. Does that mean you should describe your species? We need to know the species. Okay, so the nature of many fields makes that they won't be cited very much. But in other fields, you may be cited by, if you get it wrong, you'll get a whole bunch of papers out proving you're wrong, and yet they'll count. Ooh, that raised your citation index way up. And Brent Thomas actually gave me a case of that with herpetology, and it was amazing all this terrible stuff, and in order to counter it, raised its science citation index right out the ceiling. Anyway, Harvard is number one, 214 very highly cited researchers, Chinese Academy of Science. Yes.
Isn't that more significant for the research, the grant funding for the institution? Because the institutions get a big chunk of the grant.
Yes.
Ergo, this is really a financial statement, more so than, and how well that faculty member supports the university.
And
could you repeat the question before answering?
Okay, that actually the citation index is it's both a financial system for getting money for the universities as much as anything. In China bought into it dramatically. This became the big thing. If you publish in the journal Science or in the journal Nature, which are the top two, you would get 1 million yuan. Divide by 6, that's $180,000. That is 5 years' salary for a child. So boy, they want to publish in Science? Yes, they do. Anyway, but what they does then, go down, you class when you're teaching no, and you run back and you spend all your time researching, your teaching is lousy. You're hearing what I tell them when I'm lecturing over there. I'm very critical on this. But they just decided, and it was their decision. Anyway, but number two, Chinese Academy of Science. Our Academy of Science is sort of a loose group of people. They actually have an institute and has more doctoral students. It has the best of the best that come to theirs. One in Beijing, one in Canton, Guangzhou, one in Shanghai, and one in Xi'an. And they have their best of their best there. It's like Rockefeller University, which really isn't much of a university. It's a big research place. Okay. Stanford is third. National Institutes of Health, NIH, is fourth in the number of highly cited people. Max Planck in Germany, MIT, University of California, Tsinghua. And boys, Tsinghua, it's in Beijing. And yeah, it's like walking through Harvard. Anyway, I lectured there once and interesting arguments. Anyway, back to California, San Diego, oddly enough, and Oxford, number 10. Okay. But notice we are not 9 out of 1. We are half or so. And going down, incidentally, we used to be much more. Actually, I don't waste my time here. Down here, there is another set of measurements that are taken by Clarivate. And that happens to be the number of innovators, how many new patents, how many new things are going to be developed. And it turns out in this area, Japan tops the list with the most 100 innovations with 35. United States at 18, Taiwan 9, and Germany 9 each, France 8, mainland China, South Korea 5. That's 22. Okay. And what I'll basically say is if you want to go out and get an ivory car, you go to Detroit. Okay, the Prius. It is years ahead of everyone else out there. Detroit's copying, and will continue to do so. What it's about a whole series of different innovations, and Japan rates very high in being able to stay on top of that. And Korea's coming up fast too. Anyway. Okay, number of papers. Okay, United States was number 1 with over 40% share of research papers way back in 97. It dropped down, and you can see all at once China comes up to number 2 by 7. And then by 2017, China is top, and the United States is 7. And by 2019, this is the number of patents. And China got real serious about patents because it realized that if you own patents, then you could make money from other people buying and using. And they cracked down on anyone using something from anywhere where they had not gone and gotten permission upon the use of the patents. You will not hear that in the United States because our reporters are stupid. Okay. Nearly 2/3 of high skilled immigration is for computer scientists. Every state's an important computer scientist. USA has 700,000 open computing jobs. Only 80,000 computer science graduates are produced a year. We must educate American students. This comes from Code.org. It's been out there for 12 years for pushing computer program learning, and we're still in the same situation we were before. That is not how you train people for computers. In fact, it's the people from India that were hired to come over and do the computer programming, which was a very interesting puzzle to me. So I asked some people I knew in Topeka, you have some computer programmers working for big companies, what skills are needed? And they said the skills that are needed are algebra and sentence diagramming. That was the logic behind it. So go from there, go across Topeka to the Indian restaurant, go down to Wichita to this Indian restaurant from India, go to Kansas City, only for one reason. India food is okay. I like curry and all, but then I spot the young pups that are running around that hi, did you graduate in India before you came here? Yes, I did. What was on your tests? Because you grew up as a little kid with the local Bengali, Hindi, something like that. And then you went to school and it was in English. Okay, but as you go up, you have this final test at the end of high school to go to college. It's called a GCSE, similar to like it is in all the British Commonwealth back when we had a lot more colonies and so forth. And what's on that test? Oh, lots of math and sentence diagramming, because for them, the English, the second language all along, very important. Okay, do we teach diagramming anymore in the United States? No. California, 2 years ago, eliminated algebra as a requirement to go to college. And 8 other states now are looking at it, including the Kansas Board of Regents, of eliminating algebra as a requirement to go to college. Careful. The OECD produces these program for international student assessment PISA test, and just went in and grabbed for 2011, and top one was Shanghai, China, 75.2, and after that was Singapore, Hong Kong, Korea, and so forth, down to Canada at 49.5. We were at 32.2. And we're gonna, okay, we'll look at some things. Okay, electrical engineering, full-time graduate students, United States, international versus US students, 98, we're in the 50s. It gets 60, 69, 67, up to 70, it's 70, 71, 72. Foreign students, numbers are going up and up and up. We're up to 80. And then something happens in 2016, 17, 18, and 19, and we're back down to 74. Wonder what that's 2016 to, never mind. I'll let you guess. Okay, postdocs working in the U.S. science and engineering departments. We rely a lot on postdocs in the United States for doing research and a whole bunch of things. But we're going to take a look at very narrow fields and see what's here. The temporary visas versus, you know, those are the foreign, and the percentage 81.9, almost 82% of the people we're training in the United States in petroleum engineering are foreign students. And down, go down, this is in order as ascending order, just to see, not by time. And mechanical engineering, biomedical, physics, science, chemistry, biochem. We're going 60s, 50s, and getting further down. And when I look over here at our biology master's people, and wildlife and parks, we are the provider for not only for Kansas wildlife and parks, but also the neighboring states. And in case they don't do masters. Anyway, who are these people? They love animals and plants and fish and so forth because they. So we're going to see into that? No. This is where you're getting down into agricultural, economic, zoology, and animal. And we're down to where the number of foreign students is dramatically lower. And then as you go beyond this point, there is another, and it's also sciences where foreign students aren't. Okay. Okay. So there is a difference in bachelor's degrees and master's degrees in the bottom bachelor's graduate in 2019. You see the difference between 145,000, 1,000,008, and that's in 2018 for the last 8 weeks. And for the masters in all the science technology, and you can see again the number of hours, the number of at U.S. universities being the total of both them and where they're at in China and continuing up. Okay, there's almost all of these. China's going up, we're going down. We're not going up as fast. Okay, and China's very well aware of this. They really like the fact that we keep caps on how many students can come in, because that means more will be staying there or from other countries going there as well. They do train people from the countries, especially from Africa. And so the number of top talents lost first in the world, they lose more. United States, yeah, and other places. and Britain. And lately, in the last 3-4 years, a see increase in Chinese students, big one, and there's increase in the United States. Yeah, the U.S. migration. Service. So if you take this, add that, you're right about here. I'm expecting these must be cut. That's our political situation. They're going up. German, UK research. These are some countries, and so they're not going to be producing as much money for papers because they're small. And Japan, motion here, European Commission. So this funding isn't how it's going. Okay. It's a world as of this of 2022. There's a Japanese agency that looks at top 1% papers based on the largest number of citations. And this Japanese agency came out with this. Okay. China now leads the world in the number of top scientific research papers. You can see the person who headed the news release and so forth. And there's been well, they produce more papers than we have, but they're not as good. Well, the number of citations now, they are. And this is here, and this is from the original. This hasn't been uplifting, has it? I make sure. Yeah, okay, wasn't it to be. Something happened also last year that took a lot of us by surprise. And that was they're going to stop using SCI, an impact factor. Okay. And for all the times I've been over there since 1993, it was like, really, finally. Anyway, and so this is in Chinese. I've gone ahead in the translation in English underneath it here, but it's the implementation plan of China's Science and Technology Journal Excellence. Sounds fancy. Here's another report dealing with it. And what it says is the SCI-based indicators evaluation. We would be paying money to people who do publish in Science and Nature, but it's no longer $1,080,000. Okay, it's going to be evaluated based on a whole bunch of other priorities, and this is great. We ended up getting twice as many submissions because if they publish in our journal, they don't pay a fee to publish in it, and they actually get about the equivalent of $1,300 for discovery a new species of insect. Yeah.
Zoom in English, it's different, but I'm wondering, do U.S. professors get a what do you call it, a stipend if they publish?
No, absolutely not. There is a big difference between the two countries, which if I was doing the second lecture on why China rises and the third one on why we fall. But anyway, when you're hired as a professor here, of course, you're assumed to go ahead and do lots of publications. You may get some help for paying for the page charges for it. But once you get into Science or Nature, you're not going to get a lot of money that comes straight to you. Now, make it easy for you to get that grant that Rod's talking about, where you can pull money for your research team and so on when you go the next step in research. But no, there is none of that. Whereas over there is. But it's the same when they have rules to try to make sure that people who do research, doing good research, and that it's not being copied or fraudulent or the student doesn't know anything, this type of thing. So when they have here where we have one student defending or a doctorate at K or K State, the committee sits down all around and the student does his presentation, and then we look for the students to ask questions before we have questions. That doesn't happen over there. they have so many masters and so many doctorates, they pull in. And if you're on the committee for that, you cannot be on the examination board. And the examination board, we sit at the front, we have a little red card, and only we ask questions. No students ask questions ever. And there's only so much time, about 35 to 45 minutes for a master's and about an hour for a doctorate. We do 8 doctorates, 10 a day, and so on. And you must have on this committee, it can't be all your university. You have to have a person from another university. So when I'm over there, they pull me into those exams at all. And I, ask questions that are not memorize the book questions, but critical thinking, requiring, and not what's the next step, but how would you go about, what if it came out this way, then would you have been, and so on. Ooh, okay. But they're real good at memorizing and what they're supposed to say, because that's what their education has been most of the time. One of my tasks over there is to change your education into asking critical questions as part of your teaching, starting in middle and high school. Anyway, so I've been in on those exams, and it's quite interesting how that works. But at the end of those exams, they come around and give you a pack of money, because that's an extra duty. Okay. And when I was explaining to them way back 20 some years ago for this journal, now how does that peer review work? And I explain, and then they ask, okay, and how much you pay peer reviewers? I say, usually nothing at all. That is not going to work. It's over here. You do your basic teaching, okay? And then for everything extra that you do, you get paid extra. Like we do on being on the exam committee. And so therefore we're going to have to pay for peer review. That simply because someone gets to peer review something, don't have to say it's good and fine because they got money. They can say this is a terrible thing and shouldn't be printed unless these corrections are made or whatever. I'm sure they know that. Okay. And so they have to pay. They pay the equivalent of about $40, $50 for peer review. Over there, Chinese professors do not do peer review for free. It's just not how their system works. Okay, the Western system is mostly free. Okay, and even that's harder because so I'm final editor on this, and I will get something back. I marks on it, and I go through, and it's got problems, and so I mark it because it's my anyway. And I say, okay, this goes to the author. These have to be changed. Here's some suggestions. They don't have to be changed, but send a copy of what I did to peer review. Don't make any mentions of anything that they can see. Oh, I should have put that in that. I knew that was wrong. I didn't want to say it because that professor is from university, blah, 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 and so forth. And we have over the years got to them where they will do it because it's blind review. No one knows who reviewed your paper, but they do know who it's one way blind, but they do know where the paper came from. And they have a tendency, oh, that comes from this famous university. So I got to prove that. And they had one that it was no way. And it was from a very famous university. And my staff there's, they hated to send it back. They did, rightfully so. And we have a very good reputation. That's why they get paid $70 to $100 for every time they print from there. Okay, I'm getting close to that. Anyway, okay, here's the number of retractions, the quality, the percent, and they have a very large percent of papers now, but the percentage of retractions, they did have a problem here. And boy, Yang Wei, the head of the National Science Foundation in China, he cracked down on it hard. Those individuals who committed fraud, they ended up losing all future funding for 5 years. And before they could ever begin to apply. And it was always a stain on their name. And that got around real fast and it went down. So we still have problems of several types, but that's not what we're talking about here today. Okay, scientific research winners and losers. Okay, research evaluation. How much international cooperation is going on? A lot. And this is the number of papers, percent of papers that are being done with Chinese and other non-Chinese countries, Americans, Europeans, Australians, all over the world. It's getting up over 25% for cooperating with others. And this is sort of because it allows them to learn state-of-the-art And we may have a piece of equipment over here, but we don't have the grant money to do that. So by working together, they can share part of the burden. And they can work together and collaborate. And I'm down to the last slide, I think. Anyway, as of this one I put in just a few days ago, Franklin Howe at KU, he was dismissed and fired, but they went after him for all sorts of stealing our stuff and espionage and all this sort of thing, of working with China and so on. The U.S. District Court Judge Julie Robinson, he did not have to pay any further fine or spend any further time. Want to note that on possible espionage, this is not an espionage case. If that's what the Department of Justice thought was on, they presented absolutely no evidence. These cases that have been brought up for the last 5 years against Chinese researchers have been bogus. Okay, and the long payoff, it's fundamental research that has no monetized commercial value, and it'll be used by everybody in the global community from which we've all benefited and which doesn't recognize borders. It's been a good thing over the course of human history for this. So what no conflicts in time, because generally he works over 70 or 80 hours a week. So yes, he was over in China for a while and all, but that didn't slow down what he did here, because he works like, science knows no country, because knowledge belongs to humanity. It's the torch which illuminates the world. Pasteur is in France. Robert Koch is in Prussian states unifying to become Germany. The time is 1880. And between the two of them, because they publish openly, they feed off each other. And it's a germ theory, and they're doing great. Was he supposed to keep it just for the French? Was Robert Koch supposed to keep it just for the Germans? No, that's not how it works. So only for military and only for patentable commercial type things. And that's less than 0.5%. Most of the research goes out in international journals. And that is not understood in this country. Yeah, Pasteur is quite something. Don't ask your country or your religion. You suffered, that's enough. I research. Okay. And this, they're further along than you could ever imagine. This is the last slide. Anyway, they launched this in 2020. It did fine. It goes to sleep whenever it goes onto the night side. It's supposed to have woken up a couple of weeks ago. It didn't. It looks like a sandstorm got it. But they are doing stuff on moon landings, on the back of the moon, and on Mars. And they probably, it looks like their technology is moving pretty rapidly ahead. So in a lot of fields besides this. But anyway, there are other presentations down the road someday. Anyway, trying to get these things published. But that, I don't know if there's any questions. A lot of data.